Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called, Why Are You Even Here? This happened over 2 years ago, in the summer. I'd been working at this very well-known and steadily declining retail chain. Not the first one you think of. Think of old people, curtains, towels and KitchenAid stand mixers. For 3 years at that point. It was my first summer after starting college, and I came back to work as being at school made me realize how poor I was. Anyways, I come back to find that the position they had promised I would still have when I got back was given to someone else. And with that, all of my 3 months of reorganizing our stockroom and receiving before I first left for school had been ruined. I was slightly annoyed about that, but as I needed to work, I didn't make a fuss about it. They also took over a month to rehire me with little urgency, even though, as always, they were short-staffed since the turnover rate is high. So 3 weeks in, I go in for my closing shift to work my side of the floor by myself. As I clock in, my manager, who seems visibly frustrated, comes in. He tells me that all of the closing floor associates called out and that I would have to not only do my side's freight, but the other sides of the store as well. I'm used to these situations, so again I just put my head down and began trying to work through our new product. As usual, I'm routinely called up to the front to ring customers out, while also trying to complete my floor tasks. Eventually, on one of my trips to receiving, my manager stops me to talk to me about my availability. Before I left for school, I always had open availability, and they seemed to get really used to that. I decided this time around to give myself Sundays off, as I did need 1 day a week for myself to recuperate from the week. Apparently that was an issue, since they didn't have anyone for Sundays anymore, which would mean I'd be working the full 12-hour shift. I've done many of these long shifts in the past and didn't want to fill my only possible day off with a full 12-hour shift. When I didn't let him push back, he completely lost it. He started yelling at me that it's been really hard on the store after I left for school and they haven't been able to find consistent coverage as the turnover rate was high. I mean, like, worked first half of shift and didn't show back up for the second half turnover. I tried to not take his complaints and frustrations too hard, but stayed firm on my stance. He then says, listen, if you can't work, why are you even here? At that moment, all of the moments where I had to work nights by myself, had been chastised by past co-workers and management in front of customers and harassed by my far older co-workers all came to mind. I couldn't believe all the crap I'd been put through just to be told essentially that I'm not valued or respected for anything I've done. I waited for my manager to finish his rant, and when I got the chance to speak, I asked him, why am I here? Well, find someone else to put the fright out and close soft side. I quit. Just walked right past him, and I've never felt as powerful as I did in that moment. I'd always dreamed of my dramatic I quit moment, and I'd finally got it. My phone blew up from calls and texts from my managers, and I proceeded to block all of them. As much as I hated this job and all the crap I ran through, it taught me to never take things like that from anyone at any job. If I'm not valued, I'll leave and go on to the next. The next story is called, I Want You to Leave. So this probably happened around 10 years ago, maybe a bit less than that. I'm living in Europe and I was a university student at the time. No regular job, so I used to work with some temp job agencies which used to let me know when any work came up to see if I'm up for it. Nothing too interesting. Most of the time it was a company that had to do a yearly inventory and needed extra workers to do some repetitive soul-crushing tasks. Things like counting the number of screws in the bins and segregating them into set bins based on their type. The main problem was that for small locations it often lasted only a day or even a couple of hours, so the pay was poor at best. But hey, as long as they pay something, it's a step forward for a young student. One time I got a comfortable offer to participate in a preparation for such inventory, and a good aspect of it was that the preparation was planned for 2 weeks as they had quite an extensive stock. And it wasn't just me who was hired, there probably were like 2,000 extra little helpers. Boy, we're gonna get rich. For the first few days it was going pretty well. We were usually working in pairs for various departments around the store. Each of those departments had a supervisor or two who, well, supervised our work and gave us tasks. During those first few days I was working for some nice guys. Same department all the time. For the purpose of the story, you should note that I pay great attention to details and I'm pretty hardworking. And it was no different at this job. So I'm working for this department, and after a few hours or so I asked the guys, supervisors, if they have anything against me listening to some music on my earphones. They were cool with that, as I was not engaging with any other employees unless I was reporting that I finished a certain task and I'm ready for the next one. If a customer approached me, I was to direct him to an actual worker from the given department. So that's how a few days went by. Supervisors were happy with the work I did, and I was happy I could make the time fly faster with the help from my MP3 player that seems ancient nowadays. Honestly, still after those years, it feels nice to remember daily compliments from these very guys. Good feedback, good guidance, maybe even good managerial material in the future. But obviously, all the good things come to an end, and I started to get transferred between various departments after a few days. We had quite a lot of extra workers, so once the main departments were more or less done with, we just moved around to help where we were needed. And this is where I realized that most of the helpers didn't really bother to work as well as the others. There's been some of us who played ball in the store's alleys, and some were just chilling 15 minutes after every task since they were so exhausted from all the work they haven't done yet. Well, screw them, I'm just gonna do my thing and keep looking for work. Time flies faster that way anyway, so why wouldn't I? And this is where I met the crappy supervisor that set the bar for the next few years. This guy clearly was just given too much power, and he liked to remind others that he is the one in charge here, i.e. in his one single department in a huge store. I was working for his department, doing just as good of a job as before while listening to music. He didn't seem to mind that. Other helpers often did the same, but what he couldn't stand is when we were idle for even a second. Quite literally. We had to be focused on our tasks all the time. And at his department, we had to walk around a lot. So while walking, he expected us to plan ahead our next actions and evaluate how the said action should be performed. I wish I was exaggerating, but sadly I'm not. I had a couple of unpleasant remarks from him before. All of them were ridiculous, but still I was trying to work even harder to appease him. But I just had enough when he approached me another time. I was walking between stations in order to pick up some price tags that I needed to stick to the shelves in another part of the department. And while I was walking, I dared to take out my MP3 player and skip a song I didn't like. This is when he went too far and started yelling at me, saying that I'm not paid to screw around and I'm supposed to work. He was kinda aggressive, and we ended up yelling a bit at each other as I was feeling angry having seen what other helpers were doing compared to me. He said he called me out multiple times and I should just leave if that's my attitude towards this work. So I did. I just turned around, walked to the break room to sign out on the timesheet and left the store without hesitation. Still, we were only halfway through my employment there and I was weighing my options after I stormed out. Not showing up at work on the following day would be admitting that I was to blame. Similarly, if I contacted the agency or the company trying to sort it out, it would feel like I need to explain myself even though I don't believe I did anything wrong. And to top that, I could be blacklisted by the agency, so no more work for me after the company reports my behavior. So I did what I thought was best, just showed up at work at 8 like every other day before. As usual, all of the helpers formed a neat line in the break room to get their assignment for the beginning of the day, and I was in the middle of the line. Assignments were given by another supervisor who was responsible for all the extra helpers brought in through the temp agency. You could tell that all the other helpers were eager to see what they are going to do to me since the news spread yesterday. I expected to be fired on the spot. Honestly, I was just hoping that they wouldn't try to screw with my pay thus far. Anyway, briefing goes on and the supervisor lady gets to me, stops for a second and clearly hesitates. Didn't you leave yesterday? I did, as I was told by my department supervisor. But it's not me who has reasons to not show up for work today. I still have a contract for another week and I'm not planning to abandon it. The lady stood there for a few seconds, then just nodded, gave me my assignment and carried on with the briefing. For the remaining week I was working in various departments, but never in the one with the crappy supervisor. Not just that, but I was also assigned to my original department a couple more times, and for some reason they had even more good things to say about my performance than before. The last story is called All Because I Had to Go to the Loo. I'm a young person working in a backroom position at a retail store. I've been working there for about a year now. My management when I started was excellent, and as a result I'm well trained. I never got written up, am always on time, and I constantly do things well above my pay grade. I fill in for my supervisor in the backroom and can run it by myself if need be, and I trained our newest supervisor in her position. If you are wondering, I didn't take the supervisor job because it required changing my shift time. I knew all the fine details and was a team trainer as well. Basically, I was a supervisor but without the pay raise. My managers moved on to greener pastures and their positions were filled by new management. The new management doesn't compare to the quality of the old management. Our store manager, I'll call her Karen, is the worst manager I've had the displeasure of working for. She loves workplace politics, acting snaky and micromanaging everything. When suggested solutions to problems, Karen would rather take a less effective route just to be the one in charge. When she messes up, instead of admitting it, Karen blames anyone but herself and makes it their responsibility to avoid looking dumb. Karen doesn't help when she's needed, rarely does her job, takes personal phone calls all day and sits in her office on her computer. She's rude, inconsiderate and incompetent. All in all, Karen is an awful boss. I tried to make peace with Karen at first, but we quickly started bumping heads and our relationship is shaky at best. We are cordial with each other, but Karen wanted me to abandon 100% of my authority while still running the bag, which couldn't happen because others come to me for direction a lot. We don't speak to each other when we don't have to. Well, Karen screwed up. One day in the back we finished with a group activity. Simply put, I had to pee, so once we were done, I told my supervisor I needed a quick bathroom break and headed out to the bathroom. The second I began my business, I got called on the intercom by Karen to come to the back room. I finished up quickly and got back to the stock room. I was gone about 2 to 5 minutes tops. When I walked in, Karen was immediately interrogating me on where I'd been and what I was doing. I told her I'd gone to the bathroom and she continued asking like the answer was gonna be different. Eventually, Karen said this absolute gem to me, which she couldn't have known would change the course of our time at this company forever. Karen says, you need to use company time more wisely and do your job. Okay. Remember how I said I was basically the backup stock supervisor at this institution? My list of self-appointed management duties was actually pretty long. Training new people, fixing damaged items, fixing packaging, training the supervisors, doing paperwork, delegating tasks, giving instructions to people, taking garbages out, cleaning the stock room. The list goes on and on. When Karen said this to me, something clicked. You see where this is going. I stopped all of it. All the managerial stuff went right out the window. Do my job? Okay, I'll do my job. Not your job, not her job, only mine. That's what you asked, right? Direct your own team, do your own paperwork. Train your own supervisors, cause I am just a lowly wagey, right? Yep, my stockroom fell apart quickly. Suddenly, the entire room was in a disarray. New people weren't being trained, faulty product was put out. My new supervisor had no idea what to do other than copy me, so none of the paperwork got done. Garbage stopped being taken, people in the stockroom didn't have direction, the floors were dirty, etc. I wonder why. It was a mess. And management couldn't say anything about it, because those were management duties and not my problem. I know that Karen knew what I did, but all she could do was silently fume about it, suck it up and actually do her job. She got angry with me after this and tried giving me fewer shifts, but that didn't last. Management finally got involved with the stockroom. I've never been so satisfied with myself, all because Karen couldn't accept that I had to pee. What are you gonna do? Fire me for doing my job? And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. And I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.